I'd like to welcome everybody back we'll be coming out of recess, looking to go back into closed session pursuant to 143, 318, 11A3 to consult with the town attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the counsel, which privilege is hereby acknowledged. Pursuant to 143, 318, 11A6 to consider the qualifications, confidence, performance, character, witness, fitness, condition of appointment, and condition of initial employment of an individual public officer or employee or prospective public officer or employee, or to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by or against an individual public officer or employee. General personnel policy issues may not be considered in closed session. A public body may not be considered for may not consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, appointment, or removal of a member of the public body or another body, and may not consider or fill a vacancy among its own membership except in an open meeting. Final action making an appointment or discharge or removal by a public body having final authority for the appointment or discharge or removal shall be taken in an open meeting. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to welcome everybody out to the February the 5th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, thank you all for coming out tonight. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest in regards to any item on the agenda? Please, if so, please state at this time.
I do not.
Corbett?
No.
Mr. Hargraves?
No.
Mr. Nern?
No, sir.
All right, moving on. Amendment and approval of draft agendas. Does any member of council have anything that needs to be amended as far as the draft for the agenda goes?
I do not. No, I don't. I do not.
Mr. Nern?
No, sir.
Do I have a motion from council to approve the draft agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion at all? All in favor?
Aye.
Action discussion resulting from the closed session. The town's lawyer, Mr. Grady, has the council's information. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As many people know, but just for the record, personnel policies and personnel decisions are confidential under state statute and are strictly protected. And there are certain things that we can and cannot say with respect to personnel decisions. There have been closed session meetings concerning personnel matters on January 25th, January 26th, January 29th, and January 31st of this year. And from that, or from those sessions, the following letter has been issued by the mayor to town employees and staff. This notice is given pursuant to the exception in NC General Statute 168-168 C7. Dear town employees, the Sunset Beach Town Council has concluded its January 25th, 2024 special closed session meeting as continued over several days. After significant time and thorough attention given to this matter, the Town Council has issued a written warning to Ms. Lisa England, Town Administrator, requiring performance improvements within a specified time frame. The Town Council has determined that, pursuant to the authority granted to it in North Carolina General Statute 168-168C7, the release of notice of the release of notice of this disciplinary action is essential to maintaining confidence in the town's administration moving forward. However, any further details of the town administrator's discipline and plans for moving forward are confidential, as they would be for any town employee. We look forward to moving forward together. Sincerely, Town of Sunset Beach, Mayor Phillips. It's my understanding that there may be discussion on some points by Town Council following the closed session meetings with respect to overall town actions. The first being human resources, and I'm happy to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Corbett.
Thank you, Grady. What I would like to do is make a motion that directs Grady to assist Ms. England in the process of defining an HR position, identifying and hiring an HR position to support our human resource policies in this town. Anybody?
So moved. Do I have any discussion?
And the HR position will report to whom?
That would report to the town council.
I would think so. I mean, we haven't gotten into the weeds of that yet, but I would imagine that the human resources officer would be reportable to the council, perhaps also with Ms. England as the town administrator, unless it had circumstances warranting otherwise. Not sure.
Any more discussion? What is the vote for this council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Another
Something else? Go ahead.
Another discussion topic was consulting or contacting either the UNC School of Government or Cape Fear Council of Governments or both, and directing myself and Ms. Anglin to look into contracting with a retired town administrator. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Corbett.
Okay. Again, I'd like to make a motion to instruct that Grady and town administrator consult with the Council of Government and League of Municipalities to identify preferably a retired town administrator with experience who can come and assist town administrators and others in managing and administrating the town.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just to be clear, it is not a full-time position. It's for a period of several months.
I didn't say that, but that's good.
It would be on a contract as needed basis, serving at the pleasure of council until you're satisfied that the mission has been accomplished with respect to that matter.
Yes.
Any more discussion? What is the vote of this council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Mayor,
Moving on.
the final issue is just as a general statement. The personnel policies for the town are from 2014, and I believe that they probably need to be reviewed and updated. And I'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Corbett.
Again, I'd like to make a motion to instruct Grady to work with the town administrator, staff, and council to revisit the town of Sunset Beach personnel policies, including hiring procedures, interview procedures.
Security policies and
Security-
background checks.
There you go, security policies and background checks.
Second.
What is the discussion? Any discussion? Aaron? Any discussion? Can't see you down there.
I'd have spoken up.
All right. What is the pleasure of this council? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on. Nothing else here. Going to the general council discussion. Does any member of council have any comments or anything that needs to be brought up?
I do.
Go ahead.
As you all know, Mike Hargraves and I took on the job with permission of council to form a parking committee. Just to give you some history, and for those who don't know, we had many applicants. I can't remember the number. And each council member and the mayor were given the applications with the names redacted. And we rated each of the applicants. There were still, we didn't want a huge committee. There were still too many. So we put the top applicants in the hat and drew the names out. And I've got to say, thank you to that committee. We did what we hope you'll think is good work. There were disagreements like they would be with anything, but we had none of the previous infighting, cursing, yelling, threatening physical action. This committee worked so well that I want to mention all the committee members. I'll do this alphabetically. Of course, myself and Mike. Patrick Alderson, Susan Carpenter, Karen Domanovich, Michael Dickman, Julie Gentry, Tracy Hopgood, Gregory Jensen, Susan Krebs, Karen Layton, Bobby Leonard, Jeff Norris, and Stuart Jones. And I want to thank them publicly for the work they did. Mike?
Thank you, Charlie. I second what Charlie said. This was a very, very strong, a very, very well-informed, studied committee that did a nice job putting things together. So we're ready to make our recommendations to town council. We'd like to recommend to town council, because of the possible length of our recommendations and possible length of a meeting as far as discussion and questions, and we feel that if coupled with a council meeting, the council meeting would just be too long. It'd just be far into the night maybe. So we'd like to recommend a special council meeting. We already have a budget meeting on February 13th. We'd like to recommend a special council meeting. We just picked out a date, and we can all talk about this, on February 27th. February 27th. So if you check your calendars, see if that works for you, or other dates around that, certainly we can do. But that's one we just picked out and threw out there, and see how it works for you.
Works for me.
Yes.
See how my schedule goes, but y'all call it.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, now what about the time? As far as time is concerned, what's the pleasure of council on time of the day? We sometimes have in the morning, sometimes in the evening. We're thinking more of an evening. The more people can attend, the more people can take part. And we were looking at a time frame, instead of a 7 o'clock meeting, to be a 6 o'clock meeting, maybe a little bit earlier, to get it done a little bit earlier, hopefully.
Good idea. How about 5 o'clock?
I'm okay with 5. It's up to you. I'm okay with 5 o'clock too.
If you're saying it's going to go all the way into the night, too earlier we start.
Well, it'll be, I'm sure it'll be a couple of hours, and with a couple of hours hooked onto a council meeting, it just could be really late. So, thoughts about time? Or
5 o'clock?
5 o'clock? Everybody okay with 5 o'clock?
Yep.
We set it 10 and bring it up at the direction of directives tonight. We'll put it on there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. We look forward to presenting the plan to all.
Anyone else? Any council got anything else?
Yeah, I've got one other thing.
Go ahead, sir.
Chief Ken Claymore was named a Region 6 Director of the North Carolina Association of Chiefs of Police at a recent convention he attended. And with the North Carolina Secretary of State Elaine F. Marshall honored him with that award. He'll be part of an NCACP governing body representing Bladen County, Columbus County, Cumberland, Hoke, Richmond, Robson, Sampson, Scotland, and Brunswick County. And so, Chief, we'd like to commend you on that honor, and do a great job for us. Thank you.
No speech required.
Anyone else? Anyone else have anything? I just had a note slipped to me at the start of the meeting today that former mayor and councilman, I think he was mayor from 2011 to 2013, and councilman from 2015 to 2019, Mr. Richard Serrato, had passed on 1/31/24. There's nothing else in the general council discussion. We will be moving to the public hearings. Public hearing 17th Street Improvement Project. I think most of the people know here, Chad, I don't know if you need to bring anything else up on this, or this will be the public works, or actually the planning part. But if not, do I have a motion from the council to go into a public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion from the council? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, the public hearing is now open in regards to 17th Street improvement. If anyone would like to make any comments, please state at this time. You will have a 3-minute courtesy be able to speak. If it gets to running over, I will just give you the heads up so you can tie it up. Does anyone here like to speak in regards to this 17th Street improvement project? Sure. Check in that back room. There's some people there. Just make sure none of them. Please give the courtesy to them.
Let's go. Now, we did have
Does
one,
anybody want to speak? Oh,
we did have one
Yeah,
person send in.
I'll let you read it here in just a second.
I don't have to read it. You can read it.
No, go ahead and read it.
Okay. This is somebody who couldn't be here tonight from 17th Street. His name is Joseph Marco Longo. He says, "Thank you for allowing me to provide input related to the 17th Street Rock Improvement Project. When this project was undertaken, the application of rocks in the area in front of our driveway was not at the same level as the rest of the street. leading to excessive water and excessive puddling in front of our driveway, even during late rains. It is inconsistent with the rest of the street and leaves us driving through puddles needlessly. I'd like to ask for an agreement by the town to add more rock directly in front of 403 17th Street to remove any dips currently present in the road, as well as any other areas needed along 17th Street, so that the road is relatively level or consistent across the frontage of all properties. Thank you for your consideration. We otherwise greatly appreciate the improvements made to 17th Street, by the way. Signed, Mr. Longo.
Miss Anglin, I think that was addressed. I think didn't you tell me earlier today that that had been addressed?
It had been sent to the Public Works Department. They were trying to get to it today.
Okay.
Didn't hear if they actually got it.
They are aware of this, so it's something they'll look into. All right, again, if nobody wants to speak, this is your last chance. Does anybody have anything? If not, I'll look to council to call for a motion to close the public hearing.
Hello?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on next, public comments on agenda items only. Anyone would like to make a comment on any items that are on our agenda here, you'll be welcome to do so. Please state your name, address. Again, you have the 3-minute courtesy. I'll just give you a notation up to there so everybody can get their words in it would like to speak. So if anybody would like to speak, you're more than welcome to come to the stand. To the podium, not stand. I'll see something back there, check with them. If anybody would like, please come, have them come to the door, please. Yes, sir, most definitely. Come on up.
Anybody want to speak to them?
Come on up to the microphone and introduce yourself.
My name's William Hedrick. I own some property over here in the Sea Village area. Is this the appropriate time for me
Yes,
to
sir.
talk?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, I wasn't 100%
Anything that's
sure.
on the basic agenda is eligible to speak at this time. Yes, sir.
All right, okay.
Your
Just-
address, sir? Your address?
I can give you my permanent address. It's
That's,
in,
that's perfectly fine.
all right, 7506 Cedar Square Road, Randleman, North Carolina. That's my permanent address. Just to give you a couple points, history on me. I'm a retired police officer out of Greensboro. I worked there for 31 years. I worked in various positions there in administration, traffic, special operations. We worked a lot of special events, dignitary protection with the president and other people that came to visit our little town. But so I know a little bit about traffic, and I've been nominated by our group. I'm on the board there at Sea Village, and I've been nominated to speak to y'all. And just to let you know, in case you're unaware of it, we have 209 property owners there, and we've got 99 that signed a petition against the annexation of that property that right there at our entrance. And that's one of the problems is it's right there at our entrance. And I don't know if, I'm sure you guys know how bad the traffic is getting around here because there's just so many people coming into this fair area. I don't blame them. That's the reason why I bought property here. But we do have a little bit of a traffic problem. And the problem with most annexations is we annex it and then we try to work on our infrastructure. And you know, and you can only do so much with how much money you got. I understand 100%. But, you know, it's a 2-lane road. It does have a turn lane. But like today, I came over to the administration building, and it took me about 7 or 8 minutes to get out in traffic. And it was almost dangerous to try to pull out because there was so much traffic. And it may be heightened because of the bridge being shut down and, you know, people are routed in different directions. That could be it, and it might lighten a little bit in the future, but I doubt it's going to lighten much. And I even had trouble coming over at night because there's so much traffic. And we're just concerned that if this property is rezoned commercial and they put a strip building right there, it's going to increase the traffic flow. And one problem with traffic flow going to businesses compared to somebody pulling into a community is that when people start pulling into a parking lot park, they're thinking about other things. They're thinking, they're thinking about where they're going to park. You know, can I get right beside the
About
front
30
door?
seconds, just giving you a courtesy. So
Oh,
you
that's
can
all I
tie
got?
it up. You got about 30 seconds left.
Oh,
yes, sir.
okay. I better move on. All right. You know, it's okay. All right. I'm sure y'all probably heard of the broken windows syndrome, where that if you have vacant buildings, if you have buildings that are run down and stuff like that, it does breed more crime. That was more popular probably 20 years ago, and I'm sure the chief could probably back me up on that, that was a real common term in law enforcement. And if you look around, you see, my time's up, ain't
You
it?
just tie it off. Yeah, I'll give you a
Okay,
courtesy
all right,
tie it
all right.
off.
I'll wrap it up
No
quick.
problem, sir. Just-
But we are concerned about rising crime. And if this strip commercial area is put in or approved, we're worried about that, you know, we got other areas that are vacant. You know, if we need more commercial area, why don't they move into those areas instead of turning trees into buildings? That's another area we're worried about. We're also worried about that it's right there at our entrance. People are going to get confused. They're going to be coming into our neighborhood thinking they're going into these businesses. And we got a lot of concerns about it, and I only got 3 minutes. And
Yeah, I need to tie you off because I want to make sure everybody gets their
Okay.
words in. So
all right, I'm going to give this young lady
That'll be-
over here
that'll be
the petition.
yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. No, you're fine. You're fine. Let's go on to the next. Does anyone else like to speak? Please
Back over there.
come up and state your thing. State your name and your address, sir.
Well, I'm Tim Holloway, 7183 Marker Place. I spoke last time and had the pleasure of speaking with a few of you via phone, as well as I appreciate you reading the letter that I sent you about this issue. And the reason why you've got an overflow tonight is because many of our residents, if y'all wouldn't mind stand up for just 1 second, please, have shown up in support of not rezoning that potential or that particular parcel. As well as the people who signed the petition, both
Yeah, so you got
in
38.
person and virtually. Because we do have some residents that are not, or some owners who are not resident, but they do have concerns. We do realize the other parcel has been approved for commercial. That's up at the corner. But if this particular parcel was rezoned, that would make us completely enclosed at our entrance. And again, as we said last time, add to the traffic issues. And one of the problems that we see too is that the buffer that did exist there, as stated in the letter that I sent you and spoke to y'all about, was removed and added to the parcels on that side of our community. So that's a very that's of concern to us in that buffer has been taken out and added to the two parcels. And again, it's more of a between the traffic issues, the elderly that do live in our community. Traffic issues are a big problem for them, especially, and then not to mention the security issues that may arise depending on what types of business is there, or just the fact that people are in and out of that area more. So I appreciate your listening to us on this issue, and we hope that you will vote not to change that zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This, Pete, take a look. It's a petition.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I know you're tired of hearing from me, but you're going to hear again.
No, ma'am, I'm not tired. That's why I give you the opportunity to do it. I try to be equal with everybody. Voices are important. Go ahead.
Barbara Taylor, 7125 Channel 1. I just want to bring it to your attention that you gentlemen are in your positions because the public voted you into those positions. So your first concern should be for public safety, not for what the millionaire developers want around here. The public has to come first. And I think the public has spoken on this issue loud and clear. Those trees and that grassland must stay for the public's safety. Every tree you take out, every building you put in adds to climate change, especially along our coast. It's got to stop, gentlemen. You have to do the right thing for the public, not for your millionaire developer chums. Think about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next. You check in the back. Did anybody back here need to speak?
Let me do that.
Go ahead. I got it.
It's your turn.
Anybody back here want to speak? You guys are shy. No, nobody.
All right. Other public comments on anything on the agenda tonight? Does anyone else have anything or another one on this? All right. If not, last call. All right. We'll be moving on now. Consent agenda. Our January 8, 2024 first regular meeting minutes. Public Works Stormwater Department December 2023 report. Planning Department December 2023 report. Fire Department December 2023 report. Finance Department December 2023 report. Building Inspections Department December 2023 report. And the Police Department December 2023 report. Does any member of council have any questions for any of the directors, department heads of this? Go ahead, Pete.
I do, Mayor. It has to do with the minutes, Katie, that have for the January 8th, 2024 Town Council meeting. And on packet page 14, which is page 9 of those minutes, I'll give council a chance to turn to that point. On item number 6 towards the top, we're talking about the ordinance amendment for Chapter 95 beach regulations. And I agree with the way it is written. I just wanted to add something for intent, if I can. And it's in the last sentence of item number 6 that says, Larkin stated that he would complete a study of Chapter 95, adding definitions and all of the updates that were previously passed by council. When you go back to timestamp 3 minutes, 11 seconds of that meeting, the words and looking and wording clarifications is also a part of that. I didn't want our conversation later today on Chapter 95 to be limited to just adding definitions and all of the updates that were previously passed by council, because there are some rewordings that are important to the content of that topic. Now, I don't know if I need to make a motion to amend the minutes. I don't know that it needs to go quite that far, but I just don't want to be blocked from our further processing that item later on this evening. What is the wish of the rest of town council?
I don't think we need to vote, do you?
Okay.
Lisa, do we need to vote on that?
No, you're voting through the consent agenda to approve those items. The minutes
Okay,
will be
that's all I
amended.
have to say. about
That's
the
all you have?
Consent agenda.
All right, do you have
Everything else
anything
is
else for
good.
any other department heads? Clear? Mr. Corbett, you got anything?
No, I don't.
Mr. Hardgraves? Aaron?
Nope.
Okay. Do I have a motion from this council to approve the consent agenda? Do I have a second? Any
Second.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed? Town Administrator report, Ms. Anglin. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start out with the dredging project. I have sad to report that Sam Morrison, one of the engineers with Moffett Nickel, has passed away unexpectedly. Sam was very instrumental in bringing the town's dredging project to fruition. Our thoughts and prayers go to his family and his colleagues. Sam was scheduled to be here tonight to give a dredging update to the council and to the public, so I will do my best. The Bay Area dredging project is now completed. The contractor is moving equipment into Mary's Creek this week. The second dredging contractor has completed Canal D and is almost finished with C. The portion of the town park closest to Bill's Seafood will be closed for the remainder of the dredging season, as this area is being utilized for an off-site storage, offloading site for the material removed. The park and the parking lot will remain open. Just the end towards Bill's Seafood will be closed, and there's a fence up around that area already. Both Mary's and Turtle Creek dredging projects will be completed by March 31st. The town received the new grant contract last week. This grant increases the state share to 75%, and decreases the town share to 25% for the remaining expenditures of the project. The grant documents are on the website in the government section under the Dredging Project tab. The Market in the Park events will be held on Thursdays from April 4th to September 26th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., with the exception of July 4th, which falls on a Thursday this year, and no market will be held on that day. A holiday market will be held on Saturday, November the 30th. The rules, regulations, and the application are on the town's website in the community section. And lastly, the summer concerts in the park will be held on Wednesdays from May 29th through August 28th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the schedule is on the town's website in the community section as well. And that's all I have.
Thank you,
Comment
Liz.
on the
Go ahead.
report. Ms. Anglin, for clarification, you mentioned that Bill's Seafood was going to be closed. Is there anything that's a part of our dredging costs or compensation to Bill's Seafood for the relative location and timing of the dredge disposal?
No, Bill's
site?
Seafood is not closing because of the dredging project.
Okay. It just happens to be closed.
It just happens to be closed.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If any of the staff, it was my mistake on when we come out of the consent agenda. Any member of the staff, I know there's a few back there. If you don't have anything else, you're more than welcome to go home. Moving on next, old business, 17th Street Improvement Project. We had our public hearing tonight. The council has had time to review all this. They have looked into the situation with a letter that has been addressed. So what is the pleasure of this council in regards to this?
I have a motion.
I have a question. Lisa, has
Go
the
ahead.
paving district already been set up for that to collect the fees from the property owners?
The special assessment? Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Nern, you was seeking to make a motion. You're welcome to go ahead and put it on the floor.
I move that the council approve the resolution confirming assessment role and levying assessments.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? What's the pleasure of council? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? All right, moving on now. Majestic Oak Park, Cardiff grant application. Mrs. Anglin?
Thank you, Mayor. If you all will remember that the town was awarded part of funds to purchase the area on the island between Kobe and 16th Street, known as Majestic Oak, with the intent to convert that property into basically a passive park. At the juncture that we are at now is to reapply or apply again for part of grant funds to construct the park. What council is asked to do tonight is to determine the amenities that they would like to include in the part of application, which would constitute phase one of this project. One of the stipulations of the part of grant application is that whatever amenities are included in the application are required to be constructed. And the council has been given a list of the public input of what they would like to see in this park. We've had numerous public meetings in which the engineers brought poster boards with little amenities, and people were able to add them or delete them. And this list is what came from those meetings. Several items are required to be in phase one. Those include a parking lot, mobilization, site development, and stormwater and utilities. And then it's basically up to the town council to determine the remaining amenities that they would like added. From what we gathered from the public, my recommendation to the council is to construct the pier, the fishing area, the kayak launch, the permeable pavers, and the site furnishings, which would include swings and benches. The part of max funds is $500,000, and the council would be required to match that or more. The items that I have recommended total $594,000, which would make phase one $1,094,000.
What is the
Question.
pleasure? Go ahead.
Are public restrooms included in any of these categories?
Not for phase
Such as-
one.
Pardon?
Not in phase one.
Not in phase one. Okay.
Please, I have
Go
a,
ahead, Pete.
I have a
Mike, I
question.
think, was speaking.
I have a
Go
question
ahead,
too.
Mike.
I was contacted by a couple of kayakers, and they're excited about the kayak launch in the park, very excited about it. They're a little concerned about parking. These are older people who trailer their kayaks over to this park. And they need a place to park their car, need a place to park their trailer. Now, obviously, I said to them, you can take up 2 places and put your trailer there, but I don't know if that's going to be enough parking places for that, but maybe that's the only solution for anybody that has a trailer with a kayak on it, to separate it from the car and put it in 2 parking places. But there's a worry about that a little bit. Some people who love the kayak and they love the idea of the park. So
I don't think we're guaranteeing parking to anybody. They could show up and all the spots could be, if we have,
Oh, absolutely.
They could all be
There's no
taken.
question about that.
Yeah. And there's a space limitation. We don't want to fill the whole park up with parking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And I did forward that comment to McGill and Associates, who's working with us on this. And
Okay.
so they have made a note of that
All right.
request.
Okay. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate it.
there.
Go ahead,
You want to
sir.
go, John?
Well, I had a question. The pier at $250,000, is that actually the elevated walkway around the whole area, or is that just one strip?
That's just the straight pier, straight out, and then fans.
The T pier.
The T pier, correct. That's
So-
not the boardwalk.
And $250,000 to do that?
That's the project, that's the cost that they proposed. We won't know exactly what these figures are until we actually design the construction plans and go out for bids.
Okay.
Ms. Anglin, would it be fair to say that if we're going to get $250,000 maximum from the Partif grant and it has to be matched, that you are trying to come up with $500,000 worth of amenities for the park or features in the park because we have to match the funds anyway?
Correct.
I have a housekeeping question. Ms. Anglin, on the town report with your name, it lists 4 items. The last one, which is stormwater and utilities, it has it total at $60,000. The math doesn't work out. I think what was intended was to have stormwater and utilities totaling $135,000, because that's what they are on the master list to begin with.
I'm sorry.
And then that totals your
That changes the total.
$1,094,000. But I didn't want to leave utilities out of the conversation here because obviously they're important.
And Councilman Larkin, I don't have that cost in front of me. What did you say the utilities were?
The utilities were $75,000 as a line item on page 32 of the report
Thank you.
for the master plan for the park.
Any member of council got any more questions? If not, what is the pleasure of this council on this?
I'd like to make a motion. Make a motion that the council approve the infrastructure and amenities to be included in the Partif application and the project costs to be included on the basic facts and assurance form.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? Dredging project agreement amendment number 9, Ms. Anglin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a housekeeping amendment that the council, Sam came before council. I don't exactly remember what date, and met with you all and got approval for all of these amendments to take place, and they have taken place now, and this is just the cleanup housekeeping item.
I have a question.
Okay.
Which one was it? One of these tasks included a large dollar amount for moving the shellfish and cited the difficulties that the North Carolina Department of Maritime Fisheries had in one. First off, they didn't have a permit for this size project. It took them a long time to do it, and that added to our expenses as we went through. And then once we started to do it, increased the cost. Can we send them a bill? I'm serious. I mean, there was, we all know about government inefficiencies, but that's one that should come out of their budget, not out of our budget.
I can request.
I'll just send them a letter with a bill.
Yeah. Anyway.
What's at the end of, on page 49 there of our agenda, number 6 there says construction observations, 3rd season. Is there hope, Lisa, that we're going to end this season?
Yes, sir.
I like that.
Is part of it added in that it would need to be more time to do some of these. Do either of our contractors, are they indicating they're not going to be able to make it to the 31st?
They are not indicating that they will go past the March 31st, 2024 deadline for Marion Turtles Creek or the April 30th deadline for the finger canals. They are hopeful that they would be able to accomplish all of that, but just in case something happens.
Didn't we sometime last year make a motion and approve that if they needed to go into 24/7 operations, that they could do that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. My unscientific operations is most of them work Monday through about midday or mid-afternoon Friday, and they haven't been working on weekends. So there are a whole lot of days that they haven't been working that if they can't make the deadlines, we should really express concern at incurring more cost. And I realize these costs are for Moffett and Nichols to oversee the effort, but we should not have to get into that situation.
I agree, and I have expressed at every one of our weekly meetings that they need to meet these deadlines.
Lisa, at one point, weren't they going to have 2 apparatus for working on 2 canals at one time? Was that something I heard previously, or did I miss it?
They have 2 contractors. One is working in the Bay Area and finished that entire area with the bifurcation to channels. They are now moving that dredge equipment to Marion Turtles and will continue on that. The second dredger is in Canal C, finishing that this week.
Okay.
If he finishes up with B and A, then he will also move to the mainland.
Okay. So there's hope.
There is hope.
Do everything you can.
I'm pushing.
Anyone else?
You make a motion to.
What's the pleasure of council in
I'll make a
regard
motion
this
to
item?
approve Amendment 9.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? Moving on now to our rezoning map amendment. Mr. Studomski. I think he's in the back room.
Yeah, I'll get it.
There he is.
There he comes.
All right.
You heard.
Mayor.
Battery's down.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Thank you.
This is a rezoning that got tabled at the January meeting for the project up on the corner of Let's try this again. Mayor, Council, good evening. Thank you. This is a table discussion from the January meeting for rezoning request on behalf of Sheila McLam. Sheila is here tonight. One of the things that you've asked me to bring back to you was, and I sent you in an email, was a buffer report of what the Unified Development Ordinance states as far as buffering along that property line. I'm happy to answer any questions about that as far as it stays for MR3, residential to residential, anything that goes in there, such as uses within the MR3 zoning use table, will be subject to potentially single-family development, the single-family residential landscape and buffer requirements that are on there. Yes, sir.
To start off, Chad, could you clarify? I know one of the speakers at public comments used the term that we were annexing that property. Could you clarify the fact that we are not annexing it? It's already a part of the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the town, and that it's a zoning change that is before us.
That's correct. This is not a request for annexation. This is a subject parcel that's already in the town's extraterritorial jurisdiction, or ETJ. And this is simply a rezoning request or a zoning map amendment requested by Ms. McLam to rezone the property from Mainland Residential 3 to Mainland Business 1. That help?
There's also another question that kind of leads into this, and what we are governed by here is not only our unified development ordinances, but also our land use plan.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us, I know you did it in your summary here, but for the edification of people here, what does our land use plan indicate is the future potential for that particular piece of property?
So packet page number 52, also part of my staff report, page 2. It does talk about the 2017 land use plan guidance. The land use plan classifies this existing tract as a mixed use future land use classification. The future land use category provides access to commercial, retail, office, and limited residential uses. These land uses are primary access through motor vehicle, partially along Seaside Road, Highway 904, and it's classified as mixed use classification, and that supports potentially rezoning it to MB1.
Okay. Thank you.
Going back to the rezoning part of it, or the buffering part of it, anytime you have MB1 adjacent to residential, even if it is not in our jurisdiction, it would require a 10-foot buffer along that.
Did you mean MB1 or MR3?
MB1.
Okay.
So MB1 backing up to residential, even if the residential is in the county, according to table 3.8, it would require a 10-foot buffer along the back.
That's 0.
That's MR3 to MR3.
Okay.
So that's the difference. You at your request, you wanted the difference between if it stayed MR3 to MB1.
I read that what you sent us different on the table 3.8 buffer yards. I read it as MR3 to MR3 is 0 buffer.
That's if it stays as it is.
Yes.
If it is rezoned, it would go to MB1.
Yes.
To a residential, which would be 10 feet. MB1 is number 6.
Yes.
You look at it as an MR3
so in other words, if it is rezoned as the applicant wants, there would be a 10-foot buffer there on the rear yard.
That is correct.
If it stays as it is, as MR3, there would be 0-foot buffer if and when somebody wants to develop it.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. There are I did list the alternatives for buffers as it regarding defense walls and earth berms. All this information has been given to you. I'm happy to answer any questions. I did want to point out I did make 2 phone calls to Brunswick County, one of them to Bridget Flora for
stormwater, to ask her about this property, about the ditches. The ditches and the stormwater, however their maintenance, they are with the responsibility of the applicant or whoever owns them. They happen to be the applicant and the owner sitting in the room today. Bridget would not, I mean, it didn't trigger any kind of violations from when she looked at it as a glance. I also did call a buddy of mine that works code enforcement for Brunswick County. I asked him to look at this, and his glance would not trigger any violations at this time for those drainage ditches along the back of that property as well. I know that was also the request at the council as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I do have the applicant. If you have any questions for her, I do have Mr. Richardson, I think who is our town attorney, here to answer any questions if you have any for him as well.
Go ahead.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Talking about the traffic issues, if you had 4 or 5 residences in that 2.2+ acres, would they each one have a driveway that goes out onto 904?
So potentially the only thing I can really talk to about this is that whatever goes on there is going to require a DOT permit, driveway permit, whether it's residential or potentially non-residential. Probably, speaking from experience, what I could see happen if it was residential, let's say hypothetically, it's carved out into 6 to 8 lots. Half of you would have shared driveways, with half of those driveways dumping out onto 904. So if it's 6 lots, 3 of those driveways would dump out. 8 lots, 4 of those would drop out. If it is
what you're describing, is that more like a frontage road that would dump into one curb cut that would go onto Seaside Road?
That's correct.
Okay, but you're just assuming.
I'm just assuming. I'm assuming.
That's not what he said. That's not
Oh,
what he
sorry.
said. You said there would be 3 or 4 or so
Non-residential. If you have 6
driveways
lots,
going into
904.
Seaside, 904.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's not what Pete.
Sorry, what did you say, Mr. Larkin? I'm sorry.
I thought you said there'd be a common driveway with one entrance onto Seaside Road.
No,
from your experience.
There would be common entrances, but let's say if there's 8 lots, there would be potential 4.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Sorry
you
for
the
the confusion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if it is zoned MB1 and a residential and non-residential entity was to go in there, you're probably looking at a 1 access off of 904. Again, all this is up to DOT. Potentially, depending on the traffic counts, which I don't have that, we don't know what is being proposed on this property. The only thing that's being proposed in front of you is to rezone it from residential to MB1. Potentially a TIA might be required depending on the traffic counts of proposal, what would be going in there. Again, that would be at the request and submittal to DOT as well.
We define TIA for these.
So a TIA is a traffic impact analysis that would be triggered by NCDOT. The applicant would be required to do the analysis, hire a firm, do the analysis. At the extent of that analysis and report, DOT would look at it and then recommend any requirements to the applicant, to which the applicant would have to install at her own cost or his own cost.
How many cars do you have to have going by in order to trigger that?
I think it's 1,000.
1,500.
Right? Yeah, it's about 1,000 trips a day.
That could be there about now, I'll tell you.
That's
Wow.
that's by noon now.
Yeah.
It could be more than that.
Well, it has to be. The number is how many new cars would be entering it, not what the traffic is on the street.
That's correct.
It's the impact that new development would have on the vicinity, not
Yes.
how many cars.
It
go
would
by
be
that
how many
road.
cars going in and out of that,
Oh, okay.
not how many cars are passing
And I believe
by.
the number is 1,500.
It might
but
be
it's-
15. Okay.
but it's-
I'm just going back to the last session. The part that I'm really concerned with, well, there's 2 sides of it. We have a good public concern with the impact on their neighborhood, and I've driven through the neighborhood and I've walked the property, and I can see where the concern is coming from. But I'm not sure whether we have a basis to use that to deny this application. But what I am concerned with in the reclassification is I wasn't particularly satisfied with the answers that were given to us as to what the benefits to the town of Sunset Beach would be. there were four points raised. Most of them did not apply to Sunset Beach because they're in an ETJ, and that doesn't provide the tax benefit, the services, or the employment opportunities directly. That the application letter said that they would provide. I'd be interested to know if the applicant has a better justification of why it would be in town of Sunset Beach interest to do this.
The applicant is here if you would like to speak to her.
Mr. Corbett,
Can I do that?
may I interject, because I've been asked to sit in on this, and I'm hearing about it for the first time. As a rezoning, it is a purely legislative decision, not a quasi-judicial setting. You can grant it or deny it for virtually any reason, so long as you can tie it to a rational basis for doing so, so long as it is not arbitrary or capricious. So if you're concerned about some sort of a legal standard, that's the legal standard. You're the legislators that make zoning map amendments from time to time. And because it's not in a quasi-judicial setting, which has a higher standard of review, here, this is purely something that's in your bailiwick to make a decision on, based upon the applicant, what the applicant submits, and what you hear for or against it as well. You understand?
A question, Counselor. In making our decision, can we, by understanding the rights that the property owner has to develop their property, and understanding the comments and concerns that the adjacent property owners have, are there things that we could discuss with the applicant and get agreement with the applicant, such as, well, if it's developed as residential, the trees are coming down anyway. If it's developed as commercial, there's at least a 10-foot buffer that's required there. Could we discuss with the applicant, let's say, a 6-foot opaque fence that would be built there to help screen out, because otherwise there's going to be nothing there?
The short answer to that is no, because this is not a conditional rezoning request. In a conditional rezoning request, like you have with Sea Trail, that can be part of the consideration back and forth between the owner, applicant, and council. In this, we've got a straight rezoning map amendment that's being requested to go from MR3 to MB1. I do not believe it would be appropriate to get into a discussion about conditions on something that's a blanket rezoning map amendment.
The applicant in their application indicated as one of the benefits, as Mayor Pro Tem Corbett just alluded to, is one of the benefits to the town, which obviously we're concerned with, is that we get tax revenue from it. We got a clarification on that, but in order to get tax revenue, would it be appropriate to have discussions with the applicant on whether they would have a desire to be annexed into the town, so that they would be paying property taxes?
For purposes of this current consideration, I do not believe that would be appropriate, because they're coming in for a rezoning map amendment. They could not be held to any such conditions or restrictions. If they want to amend their application and come in under a conditional rezoning or voluntarily annex into the town, then I'm sure that's something that can be discussed at a later date.
That was discussed at the last meeting, and Ms. McLamp said no. I don't have any questions, but I do have a statement. The county approved everything out of the ETJ. The county approved. We have no say in it. You can see what went on with the bridge construction. They were late putting the light in at the Sea Trail entrance. The right-hand turn lane should have been done before the bridge was closed. And there's so many things. No one's taken traffic into consideration. We might as well be I might as well be back in Fairfax, Virginia, because traffic there is terrible. Property owners have a right to develop, and I don't see how we could stop it. That's all I have.
My only comment is I have a real concern for these people who are here and the people who signed that petition. And should we approve it? Probably we should, but the buffer is such a key here. These people have had the luxury of a lot of trees between them and the highway out there. A lot of peace and quiet, probably. You probably still hear cars going by, but a lot of peace and quiet from all that. A lot of this may be taken away. We can only deal with a 10-foot buffer. That's the minimum requirement. And so I would hope, just so hope, so strongly, won't stop me, that this buffer can be made so that it'll never be the same with all those trees, but no, the buffer can be made to really, really try to take away, to dull the difference in the noise, what they're going to see, and so on. If that whole piece of property is developed, it's not going to be good for the people living there.
Mike, the reality is it is going to be developed.
Oh yeah,
And
I understand.
and Chad has
I
been very
understand.
clear with us
I
that if it's MB1, there's a 10-foot buffer. If it's MR3, which it is right now, there's going to be 0 buffer. Just like in your backyard or side yard between you and your neighbor. There's not going to be any vegetation required. That's why I was hoping that there could be some conversation about at least a 6-foot tall fence within that 10-foot required buffer area if it were MB1 commercial.
Mr. Larkin and Mr. Hargraves, I know this has been brought up twice now. I wanted to speak to it when you mentioned it, but we got into a different direction. But I was in it today, so I know it pretty well because I did
I've been there too.
a 10-page staff report on with a little bit of it today. But just you got to think you're in the 2023 Unified Development Ordinance. There are tree landscape buffers and tree mitigation and preservation in there now. It's over a certain size, and you got to think about this. And Mr. Larkin, he knows just about as well as anybody because he sat on the planning board for a handful of years. Is that whatever if something non-residential is going in there, it's going to trigger potentially a minor or major site plan. Well, requirements of that could mean a tree survey would have to come in. Anything over a certain amount of inches size would have to be mitigated on a 1-to-1 basis. For example, 72 inches of trees is removed there. 72 inches of trees has to be put back. Whether that's 72 inches of trees, 72-inch tree or 24 3-inch trees. There are requirements in there, and I just want to remind you of that. That's also in there as well. We worked on that a lot over the past year and a half. This was submitted under that 2023 Unified Development Ordinance, not the 2012.
So a tree survey would have to be done.
Potentially. I don't know the requirements on the top of my head between a minor and a major site plan, but I do know if it triggered a minor or a major, it would. And the difference between a minor and a major site plan is 10,000 square feet of impervious installed. That's not a lot.
If you're building a subdivision of homes of any more than 3, I believe it is, you need a tree survey with your site development plan. And if it goes commercial, the requirements are even greater. In other words, the bar is even lower or higher that they would have to do a tree survey. And replacement and mitigation of those trees, particularly regulated and heritage trees.
Correct. That's correct.
Could you explain in the action that's stated here, we've got sort of the recommendation to go for item A. The planning board hereby recommends approval of the proposed rezoning request and finds that it is neither consistent nor inconsistent with the town's comprehensive plan the 2017 Town of Sunset Beach Land Use Plan, as there are conflicting policies that relate to various aspects of the proposed rezoning request within the comprehensive plan. I don't understand why if it's neither consistent or inconsistent, what is the basis that we have for making any judgments, whether it fits with our land use plan?
I have to remember if
That's our standard wording the
Okay.
planning board deals with on all of our.
Yeah, I know that, but what does it mean?
May I weigh in on that?
Pardon?
Weigh in
Sure,
on that?
yes, sir.
Even if a project is completely inconsistent with your land use plan, that is not a sole basis to deny a rezoning. Even if it is completely consistent with the land use plan, that is not necessarily a slam dunk for granting a rezoning because, again, it's purely legislative. So, here, the fail-safe way of phrasing this, because in the land use plan, and I've done this representing applicants before and opponents to it, you can go through a land use plan and you can find several things that support your application for rezoning. And the opponents can find several things that go against the rezoning. And so here it's saying the planning board's recommended approval without a finding of it all being consistent or all being inconsistent. There's parts of both that apply here, and the planning board's recommending approval based upon the application that was submitted. It's not making a finding that it's all 100% consistent or inconsistent.
So, another one that there's not an answer.
He's an attorney.
Well, I'm taking advantage of the time that we've got his company with us here. It was mentioned earlier, that they had the petition. You have 10 residents. The petition with 99 of the, I think, 280 residents that are there, which is a pretty high percentage to sign in. What weight does that hold?
As much weight as you want to get of it as the legislative body. Let me give you an example of a quasi-judicial setting. In a quasi-judicial setting, someone's coming in for a special use permit or a conditional use permit. That's where in their zoning district, the table of uses says, as a matter of right, you can get this marina on your property so long as you get it by way of a conditional use permit. Because what that means is the applicant says, okay, I can get a marina on this property, not right out of the gate, but if I meet certain conditions. And so the applicant says, puts an application together and submits it to staff for TRC review, etc., that shows that they have met the conditions in the zoning ordinance for purposes of establishing a prima facie case for the board to grant a conditional use permit. So if you go in front of the board and the applicant puts on the evidence and the staff supports it, the opponents then have the burden to overcome that presumption that the applicant should get that permit. And oh, by the way, in all of the deliberations regarding that setting, there's supposed to be no ex parte communications. Okay? And so in that setting, if the board, despite the fact that the applicant met their burden of substantial material and competent evidence, and then decided to deny the conditional use permit on opponents giving things like a petition or hearsay, that's not substantial, it's certainly not competent, and it's not material evidence. And so if they denied it, the applicant would stand a very good chance, having been on that side before, of getting it reversed at Superior Court. In this circumstance, there's no prohibition against ex parte communications. I think one of the folks spoke out earlier, said that they've had telephone calls, they can lobby, they can take you out to the property, they can meet with you, and they can try to convince you why you should exercise your legislative discretion to not grant the rezoning. Ms. McLam may do the same thing with you. I have no idea what's been going on, but that's all perfectly reasonable in a legislative setting like this. Do you understand the difference?
Sort of.
Well, so here I'm guessing that there's something in the MR3 district that is not allowed that would be allowed for MB1. And so she's coming in for rezoning to get whatever benefits MB1 brings versus MR3. If, hypothetically, there was something allowed in an MR3 district, but you had to go through the quasi-judicial process of getting a conditional use permit, then she might want to do that. But the safer bet, and I'm hearkening back to the developer issues we had a few years ago, the safer bet is to go in for rezonings where you don't have to worry about the risk of not getting a special use or a conditional use permit, where it's permitted as a matter of right, without having to go through a quasi-judicial setting. So here you really do have a very big, broad range of legislative discretion to either grant or reject. So the petition is something you can certainly weigh. I haven't seen the petition, but if it's like most petitions I've seen over 25 years, it is what it is. And you can weigh the evidence on that. You can weigh what you have observed at the property driving by. You can weigh any communications you've had with the applicant, any communications you've had with opponents, whatever you want.
Does the applicant have the opportunity, if it is, let's say, denied here, to go before the Board of Adjustment? Yes or no? Is it?
I don't believe so. I think
The answer is no.
Okay.
because it's a purely legislative decision, and I'm guessing, without having the UDO committed to memory, that there's probably some sort of a waiting period before they would be able to come back for a rezoning or something else.
It's a year.
Okay.
Of the appeal process, because I've verified it with the COG. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's some kind of, I don't know, Brunswick County Superior Court. I don't know
Well,
the next higher up.
To be clear, if you denied the rezoning, just because the applicant is not permitted under the UDO to go to an appeal of the Board of Adjustment, the applicant could still take up the appeal to the Superior Court of Brunswick County.
Something else for council to consider, and I think we want to have all the facts here. I certainly understand if I lived in Sea Village, what my position would be, clearly. However, for me to think that those trees are going to stay there forever is not a reality, because they're not. There is another exit, access, egress from that community, and it's Georgetown Dock, which goes directly out onto Pave Road, goes directly out onto Georgetown Road. I know it because that's where we come in from the fire department, from Station 2, because it's the closest access to that. Now, that would be inconvenient for probably the majority of the people that live in Sea Village, but there is another opportunity there.
Yeah. There's another question, and then reach a conclusion, I think. The tree line that's there,
Mhm.
that abuts the houses
Mhm.
that are in the village.
Mhm.
Is the tree line part of the land that's going to be developed, or does the tree line belong to the homeowners?
It's on the land that's being developed, because there's a ditch that is there, and the homeowners there, for the most part, maintained a grassed area from their backyards to that drainage ditch.
Yeah.
And then all of the trees to speak of are on the applicant's property. But they are scrub, they are not, I walked it twice, there are
I've
no
been there.
regulated or
Yes.
heritage trees along that
So
10-foot buffer.
the question becomes, MR3, they can build houses and pack them in as much as our,
Bitch, make it noise.
oh, sorry. And if you stay MR3, they can put as many houses as they want to pack in the land to try to make it financially viable for them that meets our codes
That's correct.
of the space.
That's
And
correct.
right now, our codes there are 10,000 square foot lots.
That's correct.
Okay. And they can do that taking down every one of those trees.
I wouldn't say, I don't know. I'd have to see
There's
what's in front
still
of
tree
the-
mitigation,
Correct.
But
because
by
of the
lot-
number
But
of,
by lot.
you can probably fit 7 homes in there, I believe.
Yeah.
Maybe 8.
Then the other
7.
side of it is if they goes to MB1, they have to put a 10-foot buffer, which is really insignificant for all intents and purposes, but it leaves some row of trees up in that area. But then they clear the rest of it for for business.
Well, I mean,
And
just because it's a 10-foot buffer does not mean those trees have to stay back there. I mean, they can be removed, mitigated, and then there's a requirement of buffer. The alternative would
then
be
they
to
could have put a berm up there or something like
you
that
can
with
use one of
flowers
the
on the top.
Well, he gave us the
Yeah.
options of fences, berms,
Yeah,
bushes,
yeah,
shrubs.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. This is not a hatched area of a 10-foot buffer. This is a 10-foot buffer. There are
Yeah.
requirements in there.
Yeah. Seems Sea Village is going to hurt in either way. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I don't have any more questions.
All right, what is the pleasure of this voting council in regards to this issue?
It's a tough turn.
I'd like to make a motion to deny this request.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, before we get into that, the applicant, I've spoken with the applicant. She is here tonight. If it gets to the point where it might be denied, she does have potential rights to formally ask you to table it for a specific reason, or she can pull the application to where if it is denied, then she would not have to wait a year. And I think that decision falls on her. But as I've spoke with her earlier, along with the meeting with the mayor and the town administrator, Lisa Anglin, before that gavel struck, I would make sure she had the opportunity to weigh her thoughts and give her the rights that she has to be able to make the decision to request something to you or pull the application out. Right?
Good point, Chad.
I would
Can you
ask,
pull the microphone
Pull
down,
it
please?
a bit.
I would ask that it be tabled and continued. I think it would be very beneficial to have a one-on-one meeting with each of the council members that would be willing to do that. There has been some misunderstanding about certain representations and facts in this matter. So I would like you to consider tabling it. But before we go there, I would like to try to correct some of the things that I've heard. I believe it was stated earlier that in my proposal to you, the application narrative, that I made a statement that it would increase tax revenue. And there's some misunderstanding by council people as to what I was stating there. My statement is not based on ad valorem taxes. Because I'm in the ETJ, you cannot collect ad valorem taxes. So that was not my intention with that statement. My intention was to address the fact that once businesses are established, assuming you would grant the MB1 status, businesses that charge sales tax would be collected. The sales tax is paid into the state, and then the state reallocates the collection of those sales taxes to the residents of Brunswick County. Sunset Beach would be part of the revenue receipts. So, for instance, based on the facts that I have collected, Sunset Beach current number of population is 4,270. Brunswick County's population is 144,215. That means that Sunset Beach population makes up 3% of the population of the county. And then when you see how sales tax are allocated, an aggregate sales tax would be 2%. Now, if you make some assumptions, let's say there are businesses on that parcel that generate, and I'll just use this as an example, gross receipts of $10 million in 1 year. You multiply the 2% times the $10 million, and that equals $200,000. And then the 3% of the population of Brunswick County that resides in Sunset Beach, you multiply that 3% by the 200,000, and that equals $6,000 that would be paid into Sunset Beach. Now, any multiple of that $10 million would create another multiple of the net paid to the county. My example was $6,000. Well, if it's $30 million, it would be $18,000 on an annual basis. That's what I meant when I made that statement in my narrative about you benefiting from tax revenue. So I hope that clears that up.
Could I?
Yes, sir, please.
And
Mr.
in that
Gordon.
2.5 acres, you're going to put businesses in there that generate more than $10 million a year?
I mean, it's possible.
Here?
Please, let her speak.
Settle down,
Let her
people.
speak.
Settle down.
Okay. Okay. So I just,
Is
ad
there-
valorem taxes, I think we get more out of it.
Well, I will say I like all of you, probably get a lot of postcards in the mail from brokers in this area, real estate brokers. And I got one the other day that said, and it was promoting sales in Sea Village, and it said the average sales price in Sea Village is $100,000. So if the valuation is $100,000, you're not getting, well, I guess they're not in the town from what I heard, but
We're not getting anything.
yeah, you're not getting anything. So if other valuations for similar properties in the town on real estate are that, you're not getting much revenue. I also want to comment on the town planning director's rezoning map amendment and staff review and report. In that, he states the land use plan,
Can you give us a page number, please?
page 2,
Thank you.
the land use plan classifies existing tract as mixed use. And then if you'll turn, well, I don't know if it's in your package. I'm going to hope it is. But in Chapter 9 of the Town of Sunset Beach 2017 CAMA Land Use Plan, the chapter entitled Future Land Use Classification Map and Guidelines, mixed use. The future land use category provides access to commercial, retail, office, and limited residential uses. And if you look at your map, as part of the land use plan, the map entitled Town of Sunset Beach Comprehensive CAMA Land Use Plan Update, you will see that the location of the parcel that I have applied for the change in zoning is identified as mixed use. And the parcel we're talking about is 227-3A-155, approximately 2.57 acres. Further on the Chapter 9, and it looks like it's page 9.3 of your land use plan, it goes on to say, in mixed use, the desired uses are commercial, retail, office, and institutional, upper story residential, vertical mixed use, planned unit developments. Inappropriate uses, standalone residential development, not included as part of a planned unit development. So the inappropriate use that's stated in your comprehensive land use plan is exactly what the zoning is currently, an inappropriate residential use. I would submit that my application for rezoning to MB1 is consistent with the land use plan. Denying my application to rezone is inconsistent with the land use plan. So I would submit that an affirmative vote to change the zoning to MB1 would be the proper vote by this board.
But are you asking for it to be tabled and continued, or are you asking for a vote tonight?
I would like to see if I've helped clear up any of your concerns. The buffer that seems to be a concern, my goal, if at all possible, would leave the natural vegetation. The concern for safety, I don't think is appropriate. My goal would be to develop this property with businesses that would not encourage any harm to any resident or people who are owning and operating businesses there. I want to make it as nice a development as possible, because I not only own the 2.57 that I'm asking you to rezone, but I own 4.02 right next door, which is regulated by the county. And obviously, when I develop it, my goal will be to develop it to such a standard that it would be more attractive for other business to come there and develop it in a high-end fashion. You know, I want to be proud of my development. I've been a developer in this county for 30 years, and I've got some nice developments, both commercial and residential. I developed Meadowlands Golf Club, which is an 18-hole golf course, and 500 or so residential units within that subdivision. Now, I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but it's a nice subdivision. I developed other parcels, and none of them are any that I'm ashamed of. I'm proud of them, and that's what I would intend to do with this development here. And I've looked at some buildings in North Myrtle Beach that I think are quite attractive, and the only negative about the building is it's so expensive to build. That's the drawback, but you know, it's one of the ones I've been looking at. So I think this could be an asset for the town. And you know, maybe the ETJ, but it's right there, you know, bordering the town. And I think it would be something that would be an asset to the town, both the town proper as this administrative town, as well as the town citizens. And you say, well, it's in the ETJ, yes, but the town citizens could use that to go to the doctor, to go to their favorite restaurant, to go to a men or women's clothing store. I don't want a tattoo parlor.
There's a
Council,
motion and a second on the floor.
I want to also, I have no reason to doubt Ms. McLam or her candor with what she wants to build and develop. But when you consider a rezoning, the rezoning follows the land. It doesn't bind the current owner to anything. A future owner she could sell it after a rezoning to John Doe Company out of Timbuktu, and none of this matters. So if you're granting a rezoning, or you have to consider the rezoning based on not what she's telling you she's going to do, but what could happen, whether it's her or some successor entitled to the property.
As I said, there's a motion and second on the floor. If you want to table it, you need to do that. You're going to vote.
She needs to let us know what she wants to do.
What is your request, ma'am?
I would like you to table it unless they want to withdraw their motions
Well, if you
To
tabled
do-
it, would withdraw the motion.
What's the pleasure of council then? Are you gonna look to table this, or are you gonna follow through?
Do we have to table it with a date certain?
I don't know that you have to do one with a date certain. I mean, you do have to set up something to come back, but
The date certain would then be up to the applicant, right?
You can continue it, table it, and continue it to the next meeting. In advance of that meeting, the applicant could request another continuance so that you don't have a meeting on it. You know, it's really, that's something that's kind of not that big of a deal, I suppose. If you're going to table it at her request, I don't know why you wouldn't. But I don't know what the reasons would be for not doing it. She's in control of the application. I know you've had hearings, and this is another one. I wasn't involved in January's, but
it's the will of the council to table this.
I think we should honor the applicant's request to table this motion. Table this application, this topic.
Have
until
a date?
until the next meeting, and then see what happens before the March meeting.
That's March 4th.
Could we table it until the applicant requests to come back in front of us?
I'm happy with it being on March 4th, but I would also ask any of you council people who would allow me a one-on-one audience. I would appreciate it if you would provide me with your contact information so that any other concerns you may have, I can address it on a one-on-one basis and hopefully alleviate any concerns that you do have lingering.
Well, Mr. Logan has asked for a table. What is the rest of y'all's decision?
Well, I got a concern if we table it. We keep going on this thing every month, okay? I mean, question being is does anybody at the town councilman think that there is something that's going to come forward to make us change our mind?
My view would be I'd like to cut some slack to the applicant, and as Chad coached us twice now on, is that if the applicant withdraws it, then she doesn't have to wait a year before bringing this up again. So if we vote no, which is the motion on the floor, then the applicant needs to realize that there's a time constraint now on any other action, where if the applicant removes the application, then she's free to resubmit at will. And possibly with other requests.
You could grant the continuance of final time, put it on the record that come March 4th, there won't be another continuance or tabling. And between now and then, she could always withdraw the application or go forward on March 4th with it, or maybe consider another path that might be a better path for her to come to council regarding her desires with the property.
I'm willing to withdraw my motion and continue it for 1 month.
1 month, yeah,
Final time.
Yeah.
final time.
Okay. Y'all looking to table it to March 4th. We'll add this to the directives at the end. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, do you wish for me to stick around for anything else on the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Go with speed.
No, don't go with speed.
Stop the
safely.
meter.
Go safely.
May I approach the mayor?
Yeah, most definitely.
I'm going to take a break.
Yeah.
Thank you,
All on the
Grady.
webpage.
Good night.
How about a break, Mr. Mayor?
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
It'd be long.
Back to order. Moving on now, Chapter 95, Beach Regulation Amendments. Council Larkin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a project that I raised my hand for at our last town council meeting, and with some follow-on regret. But it's been fun, and I appreciate the cooperation from the rest of council and the mayor and our department heads and some vendors that have all taken time to sit down and have long discussions with me. Just like the parking committee that Charlie and Mike have spearheaded, I think it's a lot more productive for us as a town council to have members take on projects like this, because for us, you see sausage being made tonight on the application before us before. It's hard to get things done here in closed session with a camera in front of us. But this was done behind the scenes, then every council member had a chance to chime in on it. So I thank them for that. During the course of, well, we have a set of municipal codes, and not to confuse anybody, but we have a land use plan, we have unified development ordinances, and we have municipal codes. And they all deal with different things. Our Chapter 95 of the Municipal Code deals with beach regulations. And it's a long document, but it deals with everything, or almost everything, that happens on our beach, whether it be fires, whether it be turtle patrol, whether it be dune preservation, whether it be cabanas on the beach and umbrellas. And our general provisions for Chapter 95, as they existed prior to tonight, I believed were well-intended, but over the last 8 or 9 years, we've been going into it with different committees. The planning board has gone into it. Different departments have issued different suggestions. The town council has, and one segment was not agreeing with the other. And we were talking about things that we had no definitions for. So it became very cumbersome. So what I did is I went through it, and with the help and input of a lot of people, had it made sense, tried to make it make sense, and I think we succeeded. Particularly in talking with the fire and police departments that are responsible for enforcement of our various municipal codes on the beach. It was important not only that their officers understood what it said, but that our citizens could read it and would understand clearly what they were being asked to do by enforcement officers. During the course of this, I'll give some examples of things that are not reflected in here because I don't want to submarine anybody. When I sat down with Chief Claymore with our police, he was one of the first people I sat down with. He had significant input into this and great suggestions. But one of the things I know that he does not want to have his officers have to do is carry a tape measure around. And however, it's the real world we live in, and if we want to limit something on the beach, unless you have a tape measure and somebody comes in with a 20-foot tall cabana, you have no way of saying that's more than 8 feet, or it's more than 10 feet, or it's more than some dimension, or it's not a baby infant tent because it's too big. But I would hope that in the enforcement that it would be reasonable. For an example, a baby pop-up tent is allowed for infants 1 year and younger, and it can be 3 foot tall. If somebody comes out there with a 6 foot tall cabana and says, my infant's in it, I want to keep it there anywhere on the beach, the police certainly are not going to agree that that is 3 feet tall. So unfortunately, there has to be some dimensions, and we need to go from there. Talking with Councilman Corbett, our mayor pro tem, he and I had a different way of approaching the wind-driven shading devices, which at one of our last council meetings, we indicated that we would have a trial period, which would go from then up until, or now up until May 31st, where we would look at a trial period for wind-driven shading devices to be placed on the beach. Right now, or
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Well, anywhere. It's
Anywhere
not
except
anywhere.
the zone.
There's a zone around the pier that is 3 blocks in either direction where they're not allowed. But Mr. Corbett's right. Anywhere between the water and the cabana line outside of this restricted area. John and I had some differences of opinion as to how it would be. He, I don't want to say reluctantly accepted my wording, but I wanted to give that caveat that he's not completely comfortable with it, because if the trial period does not work out and we decide as a group on the council, the majority, that we do not want to have wind-driven shaving devices anywhere except on the back cabana line, that I wanted to make it, I call it simple, to be able to edit that out. But be that as it may. The third thing I want to discuss is I had the opportunity to meet with people that sell shading devices and cabanas to get their input, because they know their technology, I do not. They know their limitations, I do not. But I spoke with one manufacturer of a certain wind-driven shading device that was not willing to completely agree with the footprint maximum size that I had in here now, which is 12 foot by 12 foot, which happens to be the maximum footprint for cabanas and other devices that are restricted to the back row of our beach. Because I don't want some innovative person that's going to make their own wind-driven shading device out of a sheet and a kite and occupy more than a 12 foot by 12 foot area. We have a limited beach area, and I think it's the responsibility to make access to everyone. Those are the three things that I don't want to say struggled with, but I came across. There is one edit that Mike Posdell came up with, and Mike Hargraves seconded, which is on page 2 of 12. Well, it's on package page 59, Katie, for your edification, package page 59. Under the definition of public beach access, the last word should be beach. I struck it out twice, but that should be added to whatever might be approved and incorporated into the Unified Development Ordinance. That's really all I have to say. It speaks for itself. I appreciate everybody's input. The end.
Peter, we also discussed on page 5 there the dates for the trial.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to make as few, yes, Mike, and Mike brought up some wording that probably would improve the understanding, but I still think it's understood without the change, and I was reluctant to add more changes this evening.
All right. The only thing I was saying is from October 1st, 2023 to May 31st, 2024.
Right. But I have in the brackets there that says the initial trial period in 2024, so I thought that covered that. I don't think anybody can step on that and violate it.
That's fine.
Yeah. And if the trial period is successful, then we're going to take that phrase out of there totally, and the date limitation. If the trial is unsuccessful, we're going to rewrite that section to make wind-driven shading devices be required into the back cabana row.
Yes.
What? You got the grass out of the way. What's y'all's?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. Not on wind-driven devices. That'll come later. Boats. You got the section that goes into 6 mile per hour speed limit and headwater speeds for personal watercraft.
Mm-hmm.
Personal watercraft goes in basically jet skis, that type of thing.
It's a motorized personnel carrier, yeah.
Okay. Where do we deal with boats? Back in the finger canals in the Bay Area?
It's in here right now. I put that in at your suggestion.
Yeah, where? I missed it.
It's on packet page 66. It's addressed to kind of shortcut what Mayor Pro Tem is saying. Our personal watercraft, God bless, in the Bay Area and finger canals, it's very difficult for us to regulate it anyway because our police department doesn't have a boat. We can have a bullhorn from the residential streets, but it's important that the areas that Mr. Corbett mentioned, that it be no wake zones, because we have kayakers, we have paddle boards, and Mr. Corbett appreciated what he provided to me, and I incorporated that in here word for word.
But we're doing It's the section is personal watercraft, not conventional boats.
But a personal watercraft, by a definition, is a motorized boat. It's not a surfboard. It's not an unpowered mechanism. That would be under the section for surfing, kayaking, rafts, which is 95.31 on the next page.
Okay, so, but in your definition, your personal watercraft is a small vessel which is designed to be operated by a person sitting, standing, or kneeling, or being towed behind a vessel.
No. Personal watercraft, small vessel that uses an outboard or propeller-driven motor. It's on package page 59.
Okay, so to clarify that, does that include regular boats? You know, your
yes.
21-foot
Yes. Yes.
Carolina skiff.
Yes. And that section has been unchanged. I did not change the definition
Well,
of
that was
personal
the
watercraft.
section we had in the past, and I'd almost have to ask the chief, even though we don't have a boat to enforce that. Is that sufficient to cover boats other than the one-person jet skis?
I would hope you don't come
My-
back
my
and
intent-
budget and ask for a
my-
police
my-
officer in a boat.
My intent for this section
Yeah.
for beach rules was not to, and I'm not being facetious, but to regulate shrimp boats that are out in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, we're not going to do that though. But in the finger canals, the feeder canal, and the Bay Area,
Well, that is,
Yeah.
it's a vessel with an outboard
The issue is
or an inboard.
An outboard.
I just want clarification that that
An outboard
covers
is defined.
boats.
The inboard says that it would power a water jet pump, so it wouldn't cover an inboard. Correct. I mean, I'm not a boater, so I don't.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
That the water
Yes,
jet pump
that-
would be the jet ski.
Yeah.
So it would be a small vessel. If it has an outboard motor, it would cover the boat. If it's a vessel that has an inboard motor, not a jet pump, then no, it's not a personal watercraft.
And I wasn't trying
So I
to
think
mess
we're-
with that
you know,
definition.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
we start getting into something that big that has an inboard motor. I think we'd have a hard time saying it's a personal watercraft.
Yeah, but you got 18-foot
Yeah,
boats with
sure.
inboard motors.
Yeah, but as defined,
that-
your
yeah.
skiff that you talked about, that would
Yeah.
be covered.
Yeah.
My intent was
So the only thing I'm looking for is a word that goes in there that covers pleasure boats that you put a family out and go fishing in, stuff like
Well,
that.
you can say, how about uses an outboard or an inboard motor, and then you can say, or an inboard motor powering a water jet pump. You can just add after the word outboard or inboard. Or propeller-driven motor. And in fact, an inboard motor wouldn't it have a propeller?
Yeah, you still have
driven
a propeller.
motor.
But again, going back to your definition on page 2, personal watercraft, the last phase is it's a small vessel with all of this designed to be operated by a person sitting, standing, or kneeling, or being towed behind a vessel.
You're ahead of me. You're ahead of me, John.
Pardon?
You're ahead of me. I don't know where you
Page 2, definitions, personal watercraft.
Okay.
Rather than in the conventional manner of sitting or standing inside of the vessel. That's sort of when you're going inside of the vessel, you're kind of talking about a pleasure boat you take out to go fishing someplace, not a jet ski. And I apologize because I just came to this level of confusion this afternoon when I was looking at it again. I don't think we have boats covered in it. What I would call pleasure boats in that.
Is it your idea that we need to stop this until we can get your boats covered, or a boat covered, or is it good to go? The reason I put my hand up a month ago is I didn't want to go the time it would take to discuss this on the dais. I wanted to get it in so we had at least something so that we could regulate it.
You and I could talk, and we can make a text amendment in the future.
Okay.
Or either
fix
just
that.
table it and y'all get it together for the next meeting, guys. Let's get out of this grass. Come on.
We haven't
y'all,
even-
y'all talk about this tonight after this is over. But I mean, if you're not comfortable with what you got, let's table it.
I think we
And then
need
bring
to
it back at the next meeting
March 4th.
so you have time. I mean, we're not going to solve it here.
Whatever the rest of council wants to do.
Yeah.
Let's do a clean 95.
Yeah, they're
And
going to
wait till March. We'll wait till
Bring
March.
it to a motion.
We want it done right.
Wait till March.
Now, is there any other things, though, you want to bring up that he needs to know about, though?
Yeah, we still disagree on how to handle wind-driven devices.
Well, if you table it to the next one, y'all can discuss it and get it straight. Everybody want to do it.
Well, I'm just going to put it on the record. My concern is crossing wind-driven devices off of the Cabana line, which is prior to this test period where we have them handled. And so if the test does not work, you delete paragraph I and the ordinance is ready to go.
This is why I sat down with each one of you.
Yeah.
Let's do what you want to vote on.
Yeah. So I'm glad to continue that conversation with you over the next month.
So we table it to the next meeting. But we ain't got no, what we're going to make a motion about that we're just going to come back and rewrite it? I mean, there ain't nothing there. You don't agree with it, so.
I'll make a motion, we table this to March 4th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No.
March 4th. Nay. Okay. Sorry, I didn't give you a chance tonight.
That's all right.
All right, moving on next. Board members' termination dates. Ms. Anglin, go ahead, please.
Mayor, during the January 8th meeting, appointments were made to the Board of Adjustment, the Planning Board, and the ABC Board. However, term expiration dates were not stated. I'm just asking for you all to make a motion to state these termination dates.
Everybody's had a chance to look at this. I think you all are familiar with everything.
Just one comment. The board member termination date, that to me is pretty harsh. Can we at least call it an appointment expiration date?
Expiration date, yes, sir.
Is
it going to be terminated or is it going to be expired?
Okay, what's the pleasure of council in regards to these?
I have a
five?
motion.
Go ahead, Chairman.
I move that we approve the following end of term date.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on, new business. Earth Day, Arbor Day proclamation. Chad Stardomsky. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you again. There's a proclamation for Earth Day, Arbor Day in front of you that the ERC and Ms. Anglin has requested to be a part of this agenda packet. It is before you. Do you need me to read it or do you just want to vote on it?
I
don't think so.
I think everybody's had a chance to review it. Does any member of council have any questions furthermore in regards to this, Mr. Stardomsky? If not, I'll be seeking a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that the council approve the commitment to our local environment proclamation
Second.
for Earth Day.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on next, the Environmental Resource Committee motions.
That's
Mr.
correct.
Stardomsky, you have the floor again.
Thank you, sir. So at the last ERC meeting back in January, I requested that the ERC make two motions. I'm going to go through them with you tonight. They're seeking direction and their formal involvement into each motion. So the date of that meeting was January the 7th or January 17th. The first motion that was made, a motion was heard at the request of the ERC to seek formal approval from the council for involvement with the town and Palm Cove POA and MOA agreement. And then I had the chairman, Mr. Farrell, draw up a memo for you as well. And further go into that, the ERC requests approval from the town council to be involved with the technical discussions with the town and Palm Cove HOA about the changes observed in the Jinx Creek and Tubbs Inlet in the 2023 as they affect the concept and design of possible dredging projects. So I'm asking for you to, or they're seeking approval for them to be involved in that conversation. I do have the chairman here tonight that can go into this as well.
Mayor, I have a
Go ahead,
question.
Sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Well, it's not a question. It's really a comment. Maybe more for the ERC chair.
Okay.
But and I guess he's here. John Farrell's here. All right, I see you. Sure, if it's appropriate. Yeah. And I'll read my thought to you if you can hear me, Mr. Farrell. There's two motions here that the ERC is bringing before us to approve. And the issue I have with the first one, which has to do with the Palm Cove potential dredging project that I think everybody is aware of, to have our ERC, an appointed committee from the board, integrate directly with the Palm Cove HOA, I think is maybe not as appropriate, an appropriate path. So what I'd like to suggest the ERC consider is this, and I'll read it. The ERC requests approval from the Town Council to provide input in technical discussions with the town and town staff about changes observed in Jinks Creek and Tubbs Inlet in 2023, and I'm going to add, and 2024, because there's new stuff that they're coming up with, as they affect the concept and design of a possible dredging project by the Palm Cove HOA. It's just that for our EOC to meet directly with them, I'm sure our town council would have a hemorrhage about that. So that would be my suggestion, that they consider that. Yeah. It's kind of saying the same thing, but we want their input.
Well, what you did, if I heard that right, you removed having them involved with Palm Cove HOA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Directly, yes.
Yeah, and I agree with that very strongly.
So my question to you about that is, if I may, who would they be involved with? The town?
The town and the town staff, and that's what I read.
Town council.
John?
Yeah.
We probably used the wrong words when we said that we would have discussion with the Palm Cove HOA. The intent was to have discussion with a engineering group, professional engineering group that was involved in the design of the project, whatever it would be. In our study through 2023, we have accumulated a lot of information. We have a lot of questions because we're not professional coastal engineers. We have a lot of questions that need to be discussed to better advise council on what it is that we've learned and what to expect from it in the future. So if we just limit the motion to discussion with staff and council, we don't have the benefit of getting our questions answered by professional engineers. Now, at the meeting last time when Palm Cove HOA and their engineer were here, my immediate reaction was, I want to talk to those people because I want to get some clarification and some answers to some of the questions we have. But in hindsight, as Councilman Larkin pointed out at the meeting last time, the town's engineer, who is Moffett and Nickel on the current dredging project, maybe our discussion should be with Moffett and Nickel and let them provide advice to the council on how to deal with Palm Cove on their engineering plans for this. But we do have a lot of information and we have a lot of questions, and we can't answer those questions if we don't talk to some professional engineering people.
Good comments, John. Very good. And John and I talked at length about this. But our desire on town council is not to just jump into this. It's to have Moffett and Nichols, our town consultant, deal with the plan, which isn't even formulated yet in detail, by the Palm Cove HOA dredging program. Because I would believe the appropriate process would be for Moffett and Nichols to first deal with it. They have a lot of information on their own. And it may be that it doesn't get beyond that.
Yeah, it's like putting cart before the horse right now.
So to have us have extra meetings with Moffett Nichols on something that may not even ever come to fruition might be, we could use our time and money differently. However, I would support the ERC certainly getting their questions answered by Moffett Nichols as the extent of the design by the HOA matures and comes before us.
Well, it's,
I'd like to interject before you go much further.
I'm done.
We have a process where our lawyer is negotiating with theirs on a memorandum of agreement. And a key thing about that memorandum of agreement is putting in definitive terms who pays for what, or even more precisely, that the Palm Cove HOA pays for everything. Until that happens, we should not be using our consultants' time or using their consultants' time and until that gets taken care of, you know. And then after that takes place, I think working through Moffett and Nickel to get your questions and information to them, as Pete kind of laid out, is a feasible way to do it.
They've brought very important information to us already. They meaning the Environmental Resource Committee that John chairs. And I would love that to continue, because what they're doing is they're going out periodically with drones and with feet on the ground, boots on the ground, and they're taking measurements, they're looking, they're seeing about changes.
Yeah.
That's going to be invaluable to all of us. So I certainly don't want to curtail that enthusiasm. But
well, it wasn't our intent by the motion to be involved directly with the Palm Cove HOA or their engineering group. The intent was to get us the opportunity to talk to professional engineers and provide expert advice to the council on what was observed and what to expect from it. Yeah. So as far as the timing goes, I don't know what's going on with the MOA. I can fully appreciate the what the process is. It's something that I've done in my past. So whatever you decide for us to do, we'll do it.
well, I read what I would be willing to accept, and I think it was at least John sort of agreed with the wording, the rewording of it.
Yeah, I think the key thing, John, is what everybody's saying here, and I agree with both of these gentlemen, is that your job is to just advise council on all these matters that we talk about. I think that's the key thing to keep in the back of your mind all the time, and keep talking with us about how to do that. And I think we could form a good team to go ahead. Like you said something on your background information here that it got my attention. The ERC believes that there are nature-based solutions to the erosion of Palm Cove shoreline that should be considered as alternatives to dredging.
Yes.
That got my attention pretty quick, and that's something, hey, you can come back to us and talk about that. That'll be good. If Moffett and Nichols ever gets involved, we ever get that far, certainly you can hook up with them a little bit. That'll be great. So.
Well, there's been a lot of changes that have been observed in 2023 over what was presented by Palm Cove in April last year. Mm-hmm. And I think that significantly changes the whole game.
That's why I wanted to add 2024 to that, so that because the way the memorandum is written, you're done. But and I don't want you to be done.
Well, we're not done.
I know. Good. You know where we live.
In fact, we got some big tides coming up this weekend, so everybody take a look for king tides.
Pull out your sandbags.
We have two motions here that they've put before us on different topics.
I have one comment. This all has to get past the alphabet agencies, CAMA, DENR. We're going to have to listen to what they say. For sure. Just making a comment.
Okay.
All right. The second motion that was made coming out of the January 17th ERC meeting, the motion was heard to request that the ERC seek formal approval from the council for the involvement in the Twin Lakes conservation and research. from the memo, kind of more in between the lines here. The ERC requests approval from the town council to be involved with the Twin Lake maintenance and conversations as well as the research. Conservation as well as the research with the scientific community to determine issues and problems and appropriate solutions.
My question, does that involvement with Twin Lakes maintenance, does that include involvement with the maintenance personnel we have on contract to maintain them?
I would defer that question either to John and or Lisa.
Okay. And my thoughts, just in general, is they shouldn't be talking to the contractors and telling our contractors how or what or where to do stuff. And that'd be a careful step that you'd have to be taking.
Where we're not involved directly with town contractors. Our involvement with the maintenance and conservation would be as research and advice, which is in our role of role and responsibilities, as described by town council. So it would be to provide work through Chad and Lisa with staff to provide our advice and with input from the community on what maintenance, is best practices type things, and would be most effective.
Can we add to advice, maybe funding, maybe some grant funding, free money, maybe to help?
We can do research on grant funding.
That would be helpful.
I'm sure it would be.
Mike,
We have so many parks.
good, excellent point, and that leads to a discussion. I would support the motion in generally, but I would want to take the word maintenance out of it, because what I believe that the ERC can best do, I'm only speaking because I used to serve with you on the ERC, is the ERC requests the approval from town council to be involved in the Twin Lakes conservation as well as research with the scientific community to determine issues and problems and appropriate solutions. And then I would also add, as a note to that, also the ERC would set up a subcommittee to actively research availability and requirements for grants specific to conservation of the Twin Lakes, using the August 29th, 2014 letter authored by Aquatico, presently in the possession of the ERC, that letter is, which provides a starting foundation for background on the lake's condition and the availability and the appropriate grants.
Why don't we just stick it to appropriate grants?
I'm trying to give the ERC the ability to, well, okay.
I mean, all of that tells them which grant to start looking at.
Well, the way that the Twin Lakes are going to improve with the amount of funds that are available in this town is not through the maintenance program that we have right now. It would be through a $1 million grant from a North Carolina graduate program, something that could use. Our Twin Lakes are a perfect medium size for lakes. They're not too big, they're not too small. And a research grant or a research graduate program could, I think, grab this, work on it without us spending tax dollars, and improve.
My point is, you don't have to be so specific as to what grant, which organization, and how. You just say, go get grants to do this.
Okay.
I mean, that's.
The only thought I have is that taking the idea of maintenance and conservation from the front of the motion and adding.
I just took maintenance.
Let me finish. Adding to the responsibilities of the subcommittee to research best practices for maintenance and conservation of Twin Lakes.
To town council, not to.
To town council.
Not to
Yeah.
our subcontractor.
Right. We're not gonna deal directly with the
Lisa,
town's contractor.
does any of this put any red flags up in front of you?
No, sir.
I'm going to remember you said that.
Did you get all that, Katie?
Any other questions?
Well, in fact, the thing is, we're not writing a document here tonight. We're sending it back to the ERC to redraft their motions to us. So hopefully they'll go to YouTube and pick up all the wording.
Yeah, I mean, you're just giving them direction.
Yeah.
But I just have a question, just so I can clarify for staff. This is no means getting in the way of the money that's already appropriated for the maintenance that's already Lisa's already sought after. Okay.
No.
Cool.
Mm-mm.
All right.
All right, moving on next. The North Carolina rate insurance resolution. Council's looked over this.
Yes.
What is y'all's interest in this? Is something you want to do?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Do I have,
Are we
do I
ready
have a
for a
motion?
motion?
Unless you got any questions, we can come back to them if we do it, but is there a motion?
I think there might be some minor edits in the resolution because you got to look carefully at the charts to see in Brunswick County for the beaches, it's 99.4%. And for the
East Coastal.
coastal
71.
areas in zip code 28468, the increase is 71.4.
Yes.
So just to get those in there. But the big thing is not only do we do this resolution, every resident of Sunset Beach should send an email to these guys and tell them cease and desist, please.
Well, and as a point too, to John's point, several years ago, they tried to do the same thing. And the rate increase that they ended up with was about 10% or 15% of what they were requesting.
It's a
So
regular thing that they do every year.
yeah, we have the
Ask for
ability
the world and
to
receive what they receive.
not sit still here. And what John Corbett said is true.
So what you've got is
Power is
amended.
in the
Do I have a
emails.
motion on the floor to approve this with the amendment being in the resolution?
Yeah,
For
I
the-
make a motion to approve the NC Rate Bureau Homeowners Insurance Rate Increase Resolution as amended.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, next up, grant funding request for the body worn camera update. Chief Claymore, you have the floor, please, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Before you in your packet, you have two quotes from Motorola Solutions, which is our current vendor for our WatchGuard camera system. Just give you a quick background. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time up here. The WatchGuard system that we have in place was here when I came in 2017. There were 5 body cameras that were shared by members then. I don't know when they were purchased prior to me coming here. After that, I applied for, was successful in obtaining a grant to get more body cameras where every member has their own. In addition to that, a wireless transfer station. These cameras are aged. We can still get parts for them. We can still get refurbished devices, but we do see failures with them. And there's been 2 upgrades since then. So there's kind of the latest and greatest is out, and we're driving, the 1985 Le Mans, if you will. So what I'm hopeful is that council would agree to allow me to apply for a grant to get new body-worn devices. These body-worn devices also act as the microphone for our in-car cameras. So WatchGuard is kind of proprietary in that regard, because I'm not going to ask for an upgrade of all the in-car and the body cam. That's going to be quite a project. So if we could, the first attachment shows packet page 81 through packet page 83 is a quote for replacement of body cams along with transfer apparatus, and this is for a cloud-based storage system. which is a little bit more expensive than the second quote. And this is, I should have started with, this is a 1-to-1 match. So this first quote, which is cloud-based, which you'll later see my recommendation, but I'm in favor of this one because our partners that might need this video evidence, such as the DA's office, currently we have to burn the video to a disc or a number of discs. If it's a several-hour video, it could be upwards of 4 or 5 discs that we then have to drive to Bolivia. We have no way to get those to them electronically, where if we had the cloud storage system, the DA's office could have a login where they could see that footage without us having to take that 2-hour round trip to Bolivia. That system, including all of the components that are needed, software, licensing, is $172,580, which our share would be $86,290, and that's for 25 body cameras. It's a little higher than what we have now. I think we have 22. So that number could be adjusted, but they quoted me at 25. Packet page 105 shows a quote for a system similar to what we have now. We get new devices, a new transfer station, and a new server at the price of $109,608, which our share would be $54,804, again for 25 body-worn cameras. My recommendation for council is to give me permission simply to apply for grant funding to obtain the cloud-based system, which the town's share would be $86,290. Before any further discussion, I do want to add that one way or another, these are going to have to be upgraded. And by all means, I think we'd rather have 50% of the cost come from the grant versus 100% of the cost come from the taxpayers.
Go ahead. When does this grant due? Is there a deadline on it?
March 3.
So if you get the grant, there's no must having to buy these. We could back off. We get the grant, return.
I don't have to spend a dime.
Yeah.
No, sir.
Okay. Because what actually that cutoff date I didn't know because you know we start budget next week and
correct.
And that would be something to include in your budget.
Sure.
Moving forward,
Yeah.
I would.
But you need to apply for the grant now.
I need permission to apply for it
Yeah,
now.
let's say apply.
To be able to get all the documentation into the portal, and the quote was the first part of that, and of course approval from the board.
Then during the budget cycle, we could actually have more in-depth discussions about this.
Yes, sir.
There's some questions that came up here with the 15, 20 pages beyond the actual quotes,
There's a lot.
which talked about installation fees and sales taxes and other types of fees that go in. That
The direction here is just to be able to apply for the grant before we go any further with anything. So I would hope that the council would.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
Always get all grants.
How about a motion?
The cloud-based system is the only way to go.
How about a motion
I
to?
don't know that you have a motion, just giving directive to go ahead and apply for the
We
grant.
need a motion.
You
She
do?
says we need.
Go ahead then.
Yeah.
Make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that Chief Clamar move forward in pursuing a grant for the body-worn cameras.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Does the amount or the because there's two different amounts, one for the cloud-based, one for the
cloud-based.
Cloud-based.
Thank you.
Go ahead, cloud-based.
Just want to make sure we're
Any
clear.
more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Is
opposed?
that clear to you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Next up, disposition of directives. We'll be looking to add the special meeting. You said 5 o'clock, correct? Right, the time you was looking for?
5 o'clock,
On
27.
2/27. The rezoning application on 3/4 where it's tabled to, and the Chapter 95 beach regulations to 3/4. Anything else that needs to be put on here?
Do we have anything for the Palm Cove HOA in the hanging in the lurks in the background? Okay.
I don't think anything's
You're waiting for them to
come
come
up
back.
yet on that MOA is what they're waiting on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But we'll do that as soon as it comes in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be something to just get added if it comes. But as of right now, this day, we don't have a date.
And John Corbett, I would assume that you're going to come up with your propeller wording for the Beach Rules
If I
95.
can figure out how we describe a boat legally.
I don't own a boat. Google it. Google it.
Neither do I.
All right.
You have a dock.
Moving on now to our public comments on any agenda items. If any questions whatsoever, you're more than welcome to come up. Please state your name, address.
Richard Dysinger, 704 Fairway Drive East. I discussed this briefly. It seems like in terms of the map rezoning request that the applicant suggests is now tabled, we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. We either go MR3 or MB1, each of which has some substantial drawbacks. It seemed to me that perhaps when she meets privately with you, as it seems is her intent, that we suggest that she pull the map amendment request and resubmit as a conditional zoning request, which would then allow the planning board to set very specific conditions in terms of what she would be required to provide in order to assuage some of the concerns that I've heard from the neighbors that she will be building this next to. So I just throw that out there as an idea and see what you think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Where's Chad? Did he hear that?
But this is, I'm not deliberating with the speaker, but just from town council, it's very difficult for us to have an applicant come in and us coach them through what they're supposed to be doing. They need to know what they're trying to do, and the way to, we can tell them options, but for us to go to them now and say, hey, try this, I think would be possibly misleading. But,
Next.
but she's
Go
going to watch
ahead,
the YouTube and she'll hear this. So.
Name and address, please.
Tim Holloway again, 7183 Marker Place in Sea Village, about the rezoning of parcel 155. And I do appreciate your struggle with, what's legally acceptable versus what's best for the community. And there were a couple of things mentioned just very quickly that earlier in the meeting I wanted to ask about. One was this 10-foot buffer. Is that something which I have no idea? Is that added to the setback required by the county, or is it something that's
within the
part of it?
It's within the setback.
Now, 10 feet would not, from the back of the properties in Sea Village, reach much of that ditch. That's the biggest concern for us because of flooding issues. So I don't know what she plans to do with the ditch property or with the ditch itself, but that could be an issue when it comes to the heavy rains that we do often have. Because without those properly draining water away, we do get considerable flooding. And as far as trees, now I'm a big fan of trees too, but they're mostly very large pine trees, very little foliage. And when you cut back to where they're going to have to cut back to, what we're really talking about is the undergrowth that provides that visual privacy for us. So just want y'all to keep those things in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Anyone else on anything? Yes, sir.
Name's Harold Katzenberger. I'm Sea Village. I live there. And this woman keeps on insisting how much she has done in her developments. One thing I have to say is the ditches. Now, Sea Village was her father's development, and they have never taken care of the drainage ditches. She said they always take care of their developments, while Sea Village was never taken care of by them. I've taken care of the ditch in back of my house. My neighbor's taking care of his ditch. And she keeps saying what they do. But the ditch was in the second plot of their property. Now it's combined in and the ditches that goes all the way down to the back of the development is no longer part of that second plot. She has separated it off and added it on to the first plot, which was approved for, I believe, two-story condos or townhouses years back, and that was brought up in 2009 when they first appealed to change the zoning. So I just want to bring up that statement that she don't take care of her stuff the way she says she does. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else on any agenda items? Or not agenda, I apologize.
Any
Any items whatsoever? Float your boats. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Council members, Mr. Mayor, Administrator England. My name is Steve Anthony. I'm a staff representative for the North Carolina Police Benevolent Association. And we've got over 17,000 members within the state, almost 70,000 within the southern states that we represent. And we advocate, we give legal representation, and we also do lobbying in the General Assembly to try and make our profession more professional, and for the rights and duties that our officers provide. And I'm a state officer. I was retired from state government, and I talked to a couple council members prior that last time I was down here was probably 2000 with the hurricanes, and I worked with marine fisheries with the Marine Patrol, and we were doing looting patrols. And I have to say that the town has done quite well since then. You got a beautiful town. And I say that because officers really have a pride of public service. And that's what I did. And that's what your officers here do also. And when some members reached out that there was possible concerns with what they were going to be required to do that could possibly cause them to lose their certification or violate citizens' rights, we got very concerned. And we were grateful that the town rescinded those directives, orders, recommendations, whatever you want to call them. And it seems like those recommendations that we suggested were taken into effect, and we would really appreciate what may have been done tonight, and we would really appreciate any other actions in the future so that those particular situations don't happen again. And again, we thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Kathy Hughes, 7116 Sunset Dock.
Did you say
Down,
that?
so that didn't come through.
Thank you.
Kathy Hughes, 7116 Sunset Dock, Sea Village. What I'm going to say is personal. Miss McLam sat here, patted herself on the back, just talked about everything she's done for Brunswick County, and in the same breath, she insulted 230 permanent residents of Brunswick County, talking about the value of our homes not impacting this county and the taxes we pay and the money we spend. I hope that in the next meeting you give us the benefit of talking as much as she was allowed to and insulting us, because I am just as good a citizen in this county as she is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay.
What? And I would
Will
like to
you- will you
not.
please state your name and your
I would prefer not to, if
But
it's okay, and if I
that's-
can't
that's
talk,
the
They
rule.
have to.
that's the rules.
Name and address.
That's one of our
Is
rules.
my safety, will my safety be taken into consideration? Because
Yeah,
I feel
oh, yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit
yeah.
threatened.
Okay. Sir,
It's just a name.
you
and
follow our rules or you don't talk.
Okay,
Mr. Nairn, I got this meeting. Go ahead, sir.
okay.
Name and address, please.
All right, David Hunt, 629 Live Oak Drive. I have watched these council meetings for 4 years now. Loved them. This is my first chance that I actually was able to come to one, and I've been excited. But there's stuff going all over the news, all over Raleigh, all over North Carolina
that's planting the seed of doubt. And I come to you in earnest. Do y'all know what an IO campaign is? A covert IO campaign? It's just where once a seed of doubt is planted, once it's planted, it's hard to ever correct it. A lot of wrongdoing came out. I'm not pointing no fingers. I'm not saying, was it intentional? Was it mistake? No, I don't know what. But I love this little town. And I want to make the suggestion to y'all. You need a transparent investigation. Because if you don't, that IO campaign will run by itself. People will talk. People will never trust. People will misunderstand unless you do a transparent investigation. You've come up with some great stuff. I liked it. But who's conducting it? Ask yourself that, because that is key. Who's conducting it? And until you bring an outside organization, consultant in to look at it, you'll never be clear. People will always doubt you. They'll always doubt everything y'all say and do. So I just, I love this little town. God, I hate this was my first meeting I got to come to. I really do. But my phone's gotten blowed up by all that's in the papers, the news. I've had people from Raleigh calling me, not understanding it. But I can promise you, if you don't know anything about an covert IO campaign, I can educate you. And they're used to win wars because it plants the seed in people's minds and they start questioning everything you say, everything that happens, everything you do. I'm going to end with this one, a good example, 10-foot buffer. There's a 10-foot buffer behind my house between the city's parking lot and my trailer. I don't know. I don't care. I'm thankful the city built the parking lot and it's not a McDonald's. But you see what I'm trying to get at. You start questioning everything all of a sudden. Don't let that happen to us here at Sunset. Don't let that happen to her. And thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
SEANARNOLD, 101 Planners Ridge Drive. I have one question. When will we find out how much money was spent with this investigation in the closed session? The taxpayers want to know. This is ridiculous. We have a paid person here for, if he's a lawyer, probably close to $1,000 an hour. And if he's 20 hours, he's made $20,000 off of our tax dollars. You've also approved to hire 2 more people. Where does all this money come from? Where are you making cuts to cover these additional costs? Nobody's bringing anything up like that. This is something for you to think about as we get ready for the budget meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No one else? I got a comment. I want this put in the minutes. As you sitting here asking questions about things like this, we have to be careful. The council does have to be careful about anything that as far as a personnel thing, and that's why things aren't brought out. It was many hours. It was I don't guess it was an investigation. It was whatever it was, fact-finding mission, whatever. This council up here decided what they wanted to do, and I respect that. But as mayor, I didn't agree with a lot of it. Didn't agree with a whole lot of it, period. But it is a pleasure to council, and I have to go with that. Unfortunately, it is my duty as the top officer in this town to serve the best interests of the citizens. I can only hope that the best interests of the citizens will be served as we go forward. Anybody else got anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.